The story of the Magi following a mysterious star might seem like ancient folklore, but it represents one of history's most profound examples of how celestial events shaped human destiny.
That's fascinating. And what strikes me most is how differently people responded to this cosmic sign. You had these foreign scholars making an arduous journey, while local experts couldn't be bothered to travel 6 miles.
Well, speaking of those local experts, they could quote chapter and verse about where the Messiah would be born, but their knowledge was purely academic. You know what's remarkable? These magi likely traveled over 900 miles following this celestial phenomenon.
The historical context around Herod really adds another layer to this. Here's a ruler who had already executed his own wife and two sons out of paranoia about threats to his power.
Mm-hmm. And what's particularly chilling is how calculated his response was. He secretly met with the Magi, got precise timing information about the star's appearance, then used that data to determine which children to target.
So, what do you make of these gifts the Magi brought? They weren't exactly typical baby shower presents.
That's exactly what makes them so fascinating. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh were worth a fortune. Some historians estimate their modern value would be well over $500,000. But beyond their monetary value, each gift held deep symbolic meaning.
The way these gifts might have financed the family's escape to Egypt shows such remarkable divine foresight.
Right. And speaking of Egypt, that journey would have taken about 3 weeks on foot, covering roughly 225 miles through hostile terrain. It's incredible how Joseph just went. No questions asked.
Well, that kind of immediate obedience really stands out, especially given the cultural context where Egypt represented generations of slavery for the Jewish people.
You know what's particularly interesting about the star itself? Johannes Kepler calculated that in 7 BC, there was a rare triple conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the constellation Pisces, an event that would have been highly significant to ancient astronomers.
So whether it was that astronomical event or something completely supernatural, God used it to speak these scholars' language.
Exactly, and here's something most people don't realize. These magi were likely Zoroastrian priests from Persia, making them both religious and political leaders in their own right. Their arrival in Jerusalem would have caused quite a stir.
The political implications must have been enormous. No wonder Herod was so disturbed, foreign dignitaries arriving and announcing a new king. That's practically an act of political insurgency.
And yet, through all this political drama, we see God's sovereignty at work. Every attempt to thwart his plan, whether through violence or indifference, ultimately failed.
That really speaks to the larger pattern we see throughout history, doesn't it? Human powers trying to prevent divine purposes, but somehow those very attempts end up advancing God's plan.
Well, what's particularly meaningful is how this story foreshadows Jesus' entire ministry: acceptance by outsiders, rejection by religious authorities, and the constant tension between earthly and heavenly kingdoms.
The way this narrative begins with powerful men seeking a king and ends with that king's family seeking refuge really captures something profound about the upside down nature of God's kingdom.
You know, in the end, this story really challenges us to consider our own response to divine revelation. Are we like the Magi, willing to follow the light we've been given? Or are we more like those religious leaders who had all the right information but took no action?
That's such a powerful way to frame it. It's not just about what we know, but how we respond to what we know.
And that might be the most enduring lesson from this ancient account: that God still reveals himself today, but just like then, the revelation requires a response. The question is, what will ours be?